Deputy Waters, I know you had talked a little bit earlier about active shooters. Would you like to take us into that conversation now?
Absolutely. So as you know, Angelica, in the fall we began our active shooter program. We started with a video for faculty, staff, and students to kind of give some background and some intro into our active shooter program here at MSJC. From there, we put on individual drills, a very large active drill, and presentations to both faculty and staff. Well, throughout this, we've had some questions, and they've been good questions from people. And two of the most common questions are, how do I hide? And if I hide, how do I barricade my classroom? And then the other question that we get is, well, if we have to fight as a last resort, how do we do that? So what I'd like to do is cover those two topics with the panel here, and we have another video in regards to fight that will show with some great tips and some pretty easy steps to take in order to help you fight if you have to on an active shooter. But I first want to talk about barricading, because I get that question a lot. Well, how do we barricade a classroom? And all the classrooms are different. We have large centers like the LRC and the library, we have classrooms, we have offices, and we have business offices. All of these have different doors and windows, and all the offices are pretty unique in how they lock and how they open and how they can barricade. So I just want to go through a couple things. I'm going to have the panel go through a couple as well. The first one I want to talk about are basically inward opening doors. Inward opening doors usually have a little bracket at the top that kind of comes like a triangle, and you can see it on most of the doors. If you look up at some of your doors, and even folks who are watching this video can, at their leisure, can take a look at their doors. If the door opens inward and has that, they can get little zip ties, a belt, even some rope, sometimes a little car ties that are elastic with the two hooks on the end. You can take those and wrap them around that bar. Once you do that, you've caused the bar to stay in place, and the bar can't open. So what happens is the shooter really can't pull the door open. And that's in cases where they can't lock their door. So that's one suggestion on how to sort of shore up or barricade their classroom or their office or their building. Sergeant Burton, how about any advice on barricading with chairs and tables?
Well, the key is to buy time for us to respond, to come out and deal with the threat. So anything you can do that will prevent that suspect from entering the classroom to give us more time will benefit us and ultimately benefit everybody that's involved in the situation. So every classroom should have tables and desks. If the tables are big enough, you can put them up on their side and place them against the windows to provide some semblance of a barricade, to provide some ballistics protection for you. You can also put all the tables and chairs in front of the doorway. This will prevent your escape, but it will prevent the suspect from ingressing into the room. So if a suspect tries to enter a room and gets confronted with a significant amount of tables and chairs, he might not want to take the time to try to scale or remove those chairs and get into that room to deal with that problem. Instead, go to another room or keep going until he finds one that's more target friendly for him.
Good advice. Deputy Looney, how about if we need to escape? Take us through about plan B. If we have to barricade and then we have to get out, do you have any suggestions about how to get out?
Well, if you're going to have to get out of the building in itself, you're going to want a method to where you're easily and quickly can access that door or access that window and get out of that room. If you have to break a window, you have so many different things that are available to you. You have your hardware that's in there. You've got the tables, you've got the chairs. That if that were a worst case scenario that you had to get that method. As with them putting the zip ties, you have scissors available to you because you have all the different types of office equipment in there. You could easily cut that zip tie, take down that belt, open up the door, and get out of that room. What it is you do want to be able to barricade yourself, but you also want to be able to just as quickly be able to get out of there as well.
Really great tips on barricading. So we want people to think, Angelica, of having that plan B just in case. Just in case we have a focused attacker that's really trying to get into a certain area, and escape may be the next option. Something else that I've suggested when I've gone around and done my talks with individual departments is having a hammer and some work gloves in your area. That way, if you have to break a window, you've got these heavy gloves on and you can use a hammer. A lot of people believe they can throw a chair through a window, which looks great in the movies, but in real life it doesn't always work. And the chair will end up bouncing back and they get pretty discouraged, or they may panic at that point. So having a window breaking device like a hammer can help with not only an active shooter situation, but even in the case of a major earthquake or even a fire where we have to get out the window, we can safely get out, clear all that glass out of the way, and get out. So that's really kind of it on barricading. But I want to go into the other question that I got most frequently, and that's the last resort. If we have to fight, and I get the question a lot, well, Deputy Waters, if I have to fight, we're not fighters, we're not skilled fighters, what do we do?
Right.
And the answer is simple. There are power in numbers. Numbers can do a lot. You have one shooter with 20 people. And when you have one shooter and 20 people, and you can all separate, and you can throw things with a combination of tackling, you can really do an effective job of stopping this shooter and certainly overpowering the shooter. So what I'd like to do is take us through a video that's put on by ACT. It's a really good video that shows us some really easy steps that we can take in classrooms to not only distract the shooter, but to overpower the shooter as they come in the classroom.
So just practice with me one time the drill. Here, no, come here. One, and then you, right there. Good, good. What will help you a lot is actually push the knee here. Yeah, because that will collapse a lot easier than my entire body, especially from stone. So just aim for the knee. You see that? That's what. Let's try one time. The knee. Yeah. Oh yeah. Much better. Nice job. Nice job. Shots fired in the corridor. Shots fired in the corridor. Nice and safe. Whoa! Yes, sir. Right on. So, you okay? Yeah. So, shots fire! Move, 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 move. One, go! You good, Steve?
Yeah, good.
All right, so what did you shoot at?
What's that?
What did you shoot at?
One shot in the middle. It was one person, one shot.
You did see a person. You managed to see a person.
Well, it was dark, so...
All right, all right. Now, did you notice that?
Yes.
Did that throw you off any?
For sure, because I had to look around it.
Right,
For sure. That took away a potential target area.
Right there.
So
right
I had my first response was to look for a target other than this.
Other than this. So it took you, what, a second and a half?
For sure, it played into Yoda.
Of course.
So it delayed me a second or two to look for another target. Maximum one shot, and I don't even know if it was a person.
Right. So we now cut down 2, maybe 3 shots from before with the handgun, with broad daylight, or with one side surprise, to maximum 1 shot without knowing if it's even a target. That's a big improvement, right? Big improvement.
So Angelica, what we see in the video are 2 pretty amazing things. Number 1, if you notice, we're not using the football team to tackle the shooter. We're using 2 female students who look like they're just regular people with regular strength, nothing exceptional about those 2 folks. And what they're showing in the video, and why the video is so good, is it's showing that with the right number of people, the right idea, using everyone as a team, so we have some people throwing objects while people are trying to hit the knee and the hip area in the first video, along with the first young lady knocking the hands down of the shooter. We've overpowered that shooter. And so what the video shows is that with just a little coordination and a little teamwork, you can overpower a shooter coming into a classroom. Now remember, this is a last resort. This is the shooter has gotten through all the other defenses we've talked about. They've gotten through our barricade, they've gotten through everything, so they're coming into the room, and now we've got to protect ourselves. Now we have to save our life. So in that first video, I think the combination of throwing items to distract someone that has to see in order to shoot, along with tackling the person, and not just tackling, but hitting them in the joint areas, the knee, the hip. Body mechanics alone will enable that person to go down a lot easier if you're trying to sort of push and pull with somebody and go strength for strength.
Right.
The other part that we want to remember is that any type of firearm is a sighted weapon, which means that I have to see what I'm shooting at, and I have to keep the weapon up. So as we saw in the video, the first young lady knocks that weapon down. So now the weapon's pointed towards the floor. And if nobody's there, which nobody was, now the only thing that's being shot is the floor. So I really enjoy that. What did you guys think of that video?
One of the things they talked about with the sighted weapon is to remember not to huddle in one area, because that gives the shooter one mass of people to shoot at. If everybody spreads out, then the shooter would have to take more time to acquire targets instead of getting one big mass of people. Another thing that they did in this video was they're throwing water bottles, but this is just for training. So just keep in mind this is a training safety video. In reality, you can use anything that is in the classroom as a potential weapon. You can use a computer monitor, you can use your staplers, your backpacks, tables, chairs, anything, scissors, anything that you can grab and throw at the suspect that will potentially do some damage, rather than empty water bottles as they used in this video.
Well, and like what you're seeing in the video, they had the different type of barricades. They put the chair in front of the door. What it is you want the element of surprise on them. You already know it's going to be inevitable that the individual is going to come into the room. If you have just enough where it throws them off when they're coming in, they're expecting a room where they're going to walk in like everybody else does. They're going to walk in, there's not going to be a chair in the way, there's not going to be a desk in the way. When you take and you place these items in there, and on top of having the individuals throwing things at the suspect, and you also have, individuals taking out the person, throwing them off balance, getting them to the ground, disabling them so that they can't shoot. What ends up happening is like they're saying, you have force in numbers and you also have the element of surprise.
Another thing is, if you have all the lights off in the room and the suspect is coming in from a lighted area to a dark area, it's going to take some time for his eyes to adjust to the light. Meanwhile, your eyes have significantly adjusted more to the light than his will. So when he comes into the room, you'll have that advantage where he can't see for that moment either.
It's about tactical advantage. And if you noticed, all these steps are incredibly simple. Placing a desk up throws the vision off. The shooter's expecting to come into an open classroom and runs into a table. So now the shooter's confused. What just happened? The chair is probably the most simple thing you could ever do. And please don't try this at home, folks. But if you have a chair like that, upside down or standing up, right inside the door with the lights off, it's difficult to negotiate. And if someone's focused on doing something else and they're not focused on seeing that chair, they're going to trip over that chair and they're going to fall. And now the class and the students and the teacher have the advantage. They now can subdue that shooter any way they can. And so very simple steps that can mean a mountain of difference between life and death if this horrible event enters their classroom.
I thought these were all great tips. To think about as a student here at MSJC, to think about something like this happening can be really scary,
Absolutely.
But when you hear these tips and you watch the video, it kind of prepares you and it lets me know that there is something that I can do to surprise the shooter when he comes in, instead of just sitting there and not knowing or being confused myself or being surprised at what's going on. I can actually surprise him. And it can be with the simple steps, like you said, having the light turned off, having the chair placed in front, creating barricades around, and then, yes, having to fight back and maybe doing some type of a ambush.
And this is the point of the video, is to prepare you so you can take the offense back in an active shooter situation.
Very good. All great tips.
And really, Angelica, you hit the nail right on the head when you talked about having a plan. And what's nice to hear is that as we're conducting these programs and these trainings and these drills at MSJC, it really is about preparing everyone for the unthinkable. But I believe, as you believe, that with a plan, maybe we can at least function and think. So what I tell everyone here is panic with a plan, and it works because we're preparing. We're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Thank you again. These are all great tips helping us to prepare for something that we don't want ever to happen, but it could come to our area.